electronic media minor and an emphasis in broadcast, print, and web.
Perfect. And if you had to say your favorite pro sport, which would it be?
Well, I'm a big baseball guy, so I'm going to have to go with my Brewers.
Congratulations. They're very successful this year in the NL Central. Chris?
So my name is Christopher Flynn. I'm from Beloit, Wisconsin, and my major is in journalism with an emphasis on broadcast.
Perfect. And what would you say your favorite sport is?
Oh, hands down football.
Hands down football. Big Packer fan?
Big Packer fan.
Big Packer fan. They had a good win yesterday against my Titans.
Oh, yeah.
And lastly, Mason.
Oh, what's going on? I'm Mason Miller from Milwaukee. I'm pretty much going to copy every single answer from Chris over here. You know, big NFL guy personally. Packers fan, born and raised. I'm got to stick with the green no matter what. So, yeah, but journalism major, broadcasting emphasis. Like I said, basically copying his homework with all the answers.
I understand. Packers had a great win yesterday, like I said, against my Titans.
Yes, sir.
In case you don't know me already, I'm Brendan Donlevy, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, so Tennessee sports for mainly everything, and a Cleveland Guardians baseball fan. Shout out, Mom, for that one. But let's get right into it, and we'll start with our first topic of this semester, the Warhawk Thought. My Warhawk Thought of the day, name your favorite random athlete. Typically, with this segment, you know, people would want to say Jordan Love, or for me, Will Levis. I encourage all of you guys to give me your most random athletes. I'm talking the Haitian sensation, Samuel Dallenberg, a legendary role player in the early 2000s for the NBA. So I want you guys to challenge yourselves and think of just an all-time great poll and why you selected them. We'll start with you, Zach.
This one I had to really think about. But if I had to pick a random athlete, I remember watching back in the day when I was a kid that I really enjoyed watching was Mark Burley from the White Sox.
Mark Burley.
Yeah.
Perfect game.
I'll never forget his perfect game in 09, and believe his no-hitter was a 07, I think, or 08, I'm not sure. But yeah, he was my number one favorite pitcher with the White Sox around the mid to early 2010s. Mid 2000s, early 2010s, man.
Great pick. Pat Perfect game was electric. I believe there was an out I believe it was the top of the ninth inning.
Yeah, top of the ninth.
You guys were mentioning it earlier. Was it De Aza?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Alejandro.
Or I thought it
Made
was Alex Rios. So I was like, but I just remember they were playing against the Tampa Bay
Made
Rays.
a great catch at the wall to save the perfect game. Mark Burley finishing his career with a 3.80 ERA. Not much known except from 2007 to 2009, he was very dominant. Adam, what you got for me?
Okay, so this one, I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of him, but I went with Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson, very nice. Former Packer. What do you got about him?
I mean, honestly, for me, I went with him because, I mean, like, honestly, all around, he was just great defensively. He was, like, great at running his routes. He just knew where the defense was going all the time. And, yeah, really, he was just an all-pro at the game.
Correct, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the only defensive player to win the Heisman? I think that's correct?
I believe so, yeah.
At the University of Michigan. Chris, what do you got for me?
I got baseball legend Jim Thome.
Jim Thome, former Indian / Guardian, however you want to say it. Very nice. Tell me about it.
I think he's just very underrated. He's kind of forgotten about amongst the legends who, were big. He hit a lot of homers, and when you talk about guys who hit a lot of homers, they like to talk about Barry Bonds, but no one talks about Jim Thome.
I'm a big Barry Bonds guy, and fun fact, my mom actually did have a cup of coffee with Jim Thome when she lived in Cleveland. I don't know if she's going to hate on me for telling that story or not.
That's awesome.
So I'm very happy you selected him. Mason, what do you got for me?
Man, I got somebody, we all know him, we all love him. Very talked about, very big NFL running back, one of the greatest of all time. To be honest, his name shouldn't even be forgotten. But we got Panthers legend D'Onta Foreman.
Very nice. Panthers legend, Titans legend, Bears legend.
Fantasy football, Mason Miller team legend. I'm a big fantasy football guy, and there was a point, it was looking bleak for me. Real bad. I still didn't win that year, but D'Onta Foreman, I picked him in free agency. Man, oh man, 2022 for the Carolina Panthers, almost ran for 1,000 yards out of nowhere. He never got to that again. He was playing it's like he knew that I picked him up, and he was like, every game, Mason, this is for you. Running his heart out, 5 touchdowns. He was going crazy that year, and I feel like he's just a guy that he's still in the NFL. I hope somebody gives him a shot because I just love him at this point. But he's just one of them random guys that one day will look back and be like, remember that one random D'Onta Foreman great year? And I'll be like, yes, I remember dearly.
That's awesome. It's funny that you mentioned that, a fantasy football legend. I got a great story about that. I had a fantasy football team. I want to say it was either 2014 or 2015. My starting tight end got hurt, and it was for the Sunday night game. So I had to drop him. I had to win that last week to make the playoffs. So the Colts tight end who was playing on Monday night, Jack Doyle, I needed 7 points from him.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of the guy. He had like 3 catches the entire season. Jack Doyle in that game had like 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown, and sent me to the fantasy playoffs. So forever to this day, I got to go with Jack Doyle. For my random athlete, mainly known for getting posterized by Anthony Edwards, but I got to go out with Yuta Watanabe,
You the shooter.
NBA legend. As a diehard Grizzlies fan, that's where he made his debut. And I was watching our preseason game, and he banked in a 3. At the buzzer to win in preseason. And from that point forth, I was like, this guy, I don't care if he's at the end of the bench or if he's in the starting lineup, I'm going to enjoy watching him. And I've just been a big fan of his ever since. He just retired recently and is now going back to play pro in Japan. But I love Yuta Watanabe. I was at like the Grizzlies' 3rd game of the season at that point, saw him sitting in the crowd, and I was like, I got to get a picture with him. Me and my buddy went over, and security was like, you sure? And we kind of, pulled our kid charm on him, and we got a picture with him. He's a great guy, so forever to this day, I will always love me some Yuta Watanabe. I will be watching him over in Japan. That being said, that concludes our Warhawk thought. Let's move on to the Warhawk football game, where unfortunately, things did not look great for the Warhawks this weekend, falling 35-17 to Mary Hardin Baylor. Were any of you guys able to attend that game this weekend?
I did
Unfortunately
not.
not, no.
I went home this weekend.
I unfortunately also could not make the game, but I was keeping up with it on my phone. And when you have 2 pick sixes in the first 7 minutes of the game,
Yeah.
it's not exactly a recipe for success. From what I heard and from when I looked at the play-by-plays, it was a defensive struggle for both sides. And eventually Mary Hardin Baylor, from first quarter to end of the game, just controlled the game. So, big loss. Whitewater was ranked number 3 at the time. 35-17 was your final. Zach, what adjustments do you think we need to make before we head into WIAC play against Oshkosh?
Well, hopefully our offense will hopefully improve for this weekend's game. I know I would say though our offense definitely struggled last week. You said 2 pick sixes in the first 7 minutes of the game, and the interceptions too and turnovers. It's like, man, our offense was definitely off last Saturday.
Yeah, just Cinetti on the game, only 1 completion for 8 yards and 3 interceptions, and eventually he was pulled for Jackson Christ, who really didn't do that much better. 20 completions, 236 yards, and 2 interceptions. Adam, I mean, you got to just think, is this a trend for the rest of the season? Do you think it was a fluke, or do you think once WIAC play resumes, we'll be right back to what Whitewater football is accustomed to being?
I mean, honestly, I think that was just a fluke because, as we've seen in the past, like Mary Hardin Baylor has been one of those non-conference rivals that the Warhawks have had. Now, granted, I mean, they were a tough team to play. I mean, they've always have been. But, yeah, I honestly think when WIAC play begins against Oshkosh this weekend, I'm sure, we'll be right back to where we were before.
Yeah, this is not the Whitewater football team we're accustomed to seeing.
No.
Every time we've hosted Mary Hardin Baylor, I believe we're 7-3 against them all time. Closest loss was a 1-point game back in 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
But with this is just, like I said, just strongly, strongly disappointing. Chris, any thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it's just kind of like turning the ball over, especially you throw 5 interceptions, you fumble 5 times and lose 3 of them. It's just a matter of holding on to the football. The special teams was really good. But other than that, the offense was having a tough time holding on to it. And they didn't get many yards. It was okay, but yeah.
And that's really the most important thing in football. You got to retain possession. If you lose the football and you're not ending in drive with points, setting up your opponents in great field position, it is not a recipe for success. Mason, do you think this is a wake-up call for Cinetti, or Chris should take over following WIAC play next week?
You see, it's tough when you go out there and neither quarterback look exactly how you love for them to look. 5 interceptions combined is never what you want to see from any quarterback you put out there. So to me, it's just one of those things where we're still early on in the season. I wouldn't say to completely just pull the plug on them just yet, but that is something, if I'm the coach, I'm looking at it in practice. I'm seeing how the team played with each quarterback being in the game versus the other one. and just trying to figure out what the best look is moving forward. But at the end of the day, to me, it's not all bleak. At the end of the day, of course, you never want to see a team pushing almost 10 turnovers. There's no way you're winning a game like that.
Absolutely
But
not.
considering how bad we played on offense, and I know it sounds like only I'm downplaying it, but to only lose by 18 when you almost turn the ball over 10 times, it could be a lot worse. So my thing is just, it's early on in the season. These turnovers will get patched up. The offense will start clicking more. At the end of the day, when you look at it, we outrushed them. Well, I mean, no. We just barely got outrushed by 20 yards. It's bad. But we outpassed them by nearly 50 yards, despite our bad QB play to some extent. And then we got 4 more first downs than them. Our offense, when it was good, it was looking okay. At the end of the day, you don't throw 5 interceptions every single game. So I'd say just the quarterbacks calm down, take a deep breath, go out there next week, next game, come back stronger.
Yeah, and anytime really in the past, especially my time here at the school, anytime Whitewater has started a first half rattled, it seemed like the second half, there was those in-game adjustments, whether it be a pep talk from the coach or something in the players' mindsets, where they came out in the second half and really regrouped, bounced back, and played what we call Whitewater football. Second half happened, and it was more of the same in the first half, and it really left a lot of us puzzled. I mean, if you look at the stats from this game, like you said, outpassing them only by 20 yards rushing, if you look at just the stats straight up, you would think this game was a lot more competitive, but unfortunately, pick sixes will do that for you, especially 2 in the first 7 minutes, very deflating. Zach, upcoming game, October 5th against Oshkosh. You think Whitewater will get out of the slump and rebound? And what is like an analysis for that upcoming game?
Oh, for sure. They'll definitely bounce back this week after what happened last week, for sure. They're going to put that last game behind and pretend like it never happened. They'll go out and put on a good show for the Whitewater Warhawk crowd.
I hope so. Adam, any following thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Zach on that. Like Oshkosh, when it comes to WIAC play, they've usually had success against them. So I'm expecting a big Warhawk win this coming weekend.
Yes, it'll be October 5th, following the bye this week.
Or a couple weeks, I
Oh,
should
all
say.
good. We've got a bye this week.
Oh,
A
I
well-deserved,
forgot about
a
that.
well-needed bye week following that loss. Chris, think we bounce back against Oshkosh on the 5th?
I think we do. I just, Whitewater football, is usually really good. I think that was just one game, out of many. So, I think every team has that. So that was Whitewater's one, I think.
And Mason, any following thoughts?
Just like everybody else said, man. I'm a freshman, but I'm already all in with the Whitewater culture. I'm go Warhawks all the time. I'm never going to say that we're just going to lose unless it's obvious. We're one of the best teams in D3. I'm going to stamp that right now. We're one of the best teams, if not the best team, in my own opinion. So, of course, I'm going to say that we're going to come back. We got the bye week. We got more time to get everything right and clicking for our offense. And games like this, it happens to the best of us, but it's not going to happen again.
And I think with a head coach the caliber of Rindall, especially with this well-needed bye week, that game, like I said, on the 5th against the 2-1 Oshkosh. Oshkosh this season started off with 2 wins against ranked teams against Wheaton and Linfield, but fell 44-7 to Michigan Tech this past weekend. So another blowout loss for a WIAC team that we really weren't expecting. But once again, October 5th, Whitewater fell to number 10 in the rankings. That game will be at home for Whitewater. And not necessarily a must-win, but coming off a loss such as this, to start off WIAC play against one of the more competitive teams in your conference, I think it's imperative that Whitewater comes out with a bang and wins this game this upcoming October 5th. Moving right along to the NFL weekend recap. A lot of you guys are Packer fans in here. I'm sure you guys had a great time watching the game yesterday. I did not. I raged quite a bit, lost a majority of my fantasy football leagues, got to watch my team get trounced by my second favorite team. Not one of my favorite days. Had to watch the Chiefs win and knock out Kirk Cousins, who's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and just demoralizing loss there on Sunday night, especially when the refs don't call PIs. But we'll get to that when we cross it. But Zach, initial thoughts on the Packers?
I would say they definitely pulled off a much-needed win for sure, especially since they still don't have Jordan Love back yet.
That is correct.
Yeah, but their offense, the defense, it's still, to me, business as usual. Like I said, even though Jordan Love's not back yet, they're still showing everyone, hey, we're still good enough to win on a week-to-week basis.
And I 100% agree with you. Willis looked tremendous yesterday, and it really pained me as a Titans fan to watch the guy that we traded for a 7th-round pick after the last week of preseason to go out there and not only get his passing yard high in a game, but as well as his rushing yards high in a game. Just absolutely demoralizing. And I'm sure you had a good time watching the game.
Yeah, I did. Just watching, like your quarterback getting sacked 8 times. That felt amazing.
That Packers defense is really criminally underrated. That Xavier McKinney acquisition was tremendous for
That
them.
was huge.
Became, I believe, the second Packer ever to have a pick in the first 3 games of the season. Chris, I mean, give me some inspiration here. Did you see anything positive from the Titans whatsoever, or do you think it was just all Green Bay?
Well, DeAndre Hopkins played okay.
He came back to life.
Yeah, he's getting a little older now. The Packers secondary is really good. Jair Alexander and Xavier McKinney, both really good. McKinney's got 3 picks now this season. Jair's got 2. He got that big pick 6 yesterday. So that's a big positive. When in past years, the Packers secondary is kind of
Jair and company?
Some years they're injured. Some years they don't have all the pieces they want. But this year, I think it's going to be good with McKinney and Alexander, that little duo.
That's a tremendous combination of players to have in your secondary. Mason, what were your thoughts on the game?
Man, it can be summarized in one sentence. Pack is back. Really, we never even left, to be completely honest with you. We're just picking up where we left off at the end of the day. Jordan Love went down, no sweat. We took you guys quarterback. Thank you for that, by the way. I'm hoping you're enjoying seeing Malik Willis thrive on another team. And, Will Levis, hey, he's a quarterback in the NFL. You know, he's on the team.
Ouch, but fair.
He's cool. But what can you say, man? Jair Alexander taking one back for a pick 6, my glorious king. Jair. Love to see him doing his thing. The Packers defense looking amazing, and Matt LaFleur is showing why he is one of, at the very least, top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. It just looks like the Titans just don't know what exactly they're doing. Losing Derrick Henry. They have Will Levis as their quarterback. It's looking kind of bleak for you guys, so I'm not sure what to tell you, but we don't even have Jordan Love, and this is what we're doing. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Packers, man. I'm liking them a lot.
And they will be facing the Minnesota Vikings next week. And let's get to talking about those Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota, 3-0 on the year with an impressive 34-7 victory over the Houston Texans. Many had the Texans taking that game right away. Everyone says the Sam Darnold, those first 2 weeks were a fluke. But they came out there and, for lack of better terms, they kicked their butt.
Totally.
100%. It was a flat-out domination. Mason, this Packers-Vikings game next week, are the Vikings legit this year? Or is this just a fluke start? Or what do we think about the Vikings?
Man, as much as it pains me to say it, the Vikings, I love them, man. I love them a lot. Justin
They
Jefferson.
have a great culture.
Justin Jefferson, he's showing that he is QB-proof. Well, kind of not even, because Sam Darnold has been playing out of his mind. I think people forget that Sam Darnold is younger than Joe Burrow. He's still got a lot of time left to develop, and it's looking like in the Vikings offense, Kevin O'Connell's transformed him completely. He looks like a completely new player. He's playing with confidence, just launching the ball all over the field accurately. And they've been taking down some tough opponents. So I can't sit here, as much as I want to hate on them, as a fellow NFC North team, they're looking legit, as sad as it is.
And that was not really the expectation that we had for the NFC North this season.
Yeah.
A lot of people had Chicago being that team instead of Minnesota. But, Darnold has come out and McCarthy went down. That initial, hope and optimism for all Vikings fans kind of went out the window. Darnold comes in, and to be honest, with my opinions on J.J. McCarthy, I hope he gets well and healthy soon. But maybe it was a blessing in disguise that you have a quarterback, angry, former top 3 pick, has played with atrocious O-lines between the Panthers and Jets in his career. And now he actually has some sort of talent around him with Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson. And I'm really impressed by that rookie receiver, Naylor.
Yeah.
Haven't heard of him before the season. He looked tremendous. But, Chris, what do you think about that Packers-Vikings game next week and your initial prediction?
That's a tough one because, we always kind of I feel like recently we've been splitting the series. They take a game, we take a game, and it's really hard, especially this is going to be, Aaron Jones' homecoming, playing against the Packers for the first time since going to Minnesota. And Jones has been playing pretty good this year. Josh Jacobs, our new running back, has been kind of, But Sam Darnold has been really good, making his big resurgence, kind of reminded me of Baker Mayfield a little bit, except he was in a kind of worse situation to start. But
I agree.
Darnold has got so much around him, and he's proven that he can finally be, the top 3 pick he was when he came into the league.
And like Mason mentioned earlier, he's only 27 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to give up on these rookie quarterbacks or younger quarterbacks right away and just throw them to the side, when in reality, we've never actually seen them with full talent around them, a good offensive line, wide receiver talent, because these teams consistently picking the top 5. So if you draft a generational quarterback prospect, big deal, but you have to build around and protect him. We're seeing it with Caleb now, and despite my opinions on Caleb Williams, I do want him to succeed. I never wish openly for anyone to do bad. But with what the Bears have around him now, they made all these moves for wide receivers and running backs, but in the end, they can't protect him. He's getting murdered every play, it seems like. So, got to do a better job with offensive line and protection, and I really like what the Vikings have done to build around Darnold. Adam, like I said, if you had to give me a final score prediction, all bias aside for this upcoming weekend, Packer-Vikings, what do you think?
Man, that's a tough one, honestly. Just based on the resurgence of Darnold and the fact that, as you said, he's got all that protection around him on the O-line, and he's got, well, of course, like Minnesota's always, well, I wouldn't say always had great wide receivers, but this year especially has been like it's just been great.
We haven't even seen Jordan Addison fully healthy yet either.
No, so for me, this is tough, honestly, because I mean, like both teams are doing really good so far. But honestly, I could see Green Bay just eking it out, but not by much. Probably like a field goal, maybe less.
Like a 24-21 type of game?
Yeah, or I'd say more like 31-28.
Ooh, a bit more higher scoring. Zach, what would your final score prediction be?
I'm predicting the final score will be 21-10 Green Bay. Even with the incredible start by the Vikings, I don't see them winning this weekend though. But you still got to admit though, for Minnesota, that 3-0 start, I mean, nobody expected out of them. Like if I describe that kind of start of a season for them in one word, incredible. I'm just saying.
Insane. It's definitely a lot better than NFL pundits and analysts such as, I would consider myself one, were expecting. I was expecting maybe 1-2 at best with a win in New York, but definitely not 3-0.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the first time, I actually looked, it's pretty, this is the first time since 2016 that they've actually gone 3-0 to begin the year.
And was that Keenum or Bradford? I'm trying to remember who the quarterback was. I think it was Case Keenum.
I think it was Keenum, yeah.
Yeah, it was him.
That was that legacy Case Keenum run. Chris, I'm going to ask you, what game really stood out to you this past Sunday, as a shocking performance, or what team really came out and took care of business that really shocked you?
I have to say the Eagles Saints. I actually was kind of one of those people that thought the Saints would have another really good game. The first 2 weeks was phenomenal offense. Derek Carr surprised me. And then they go play the Eagles, and I wasn't maybe necessarily thinking, oh, they're going to score 40 again because it's the Eagles.
Right.
But I was thinking they could win because the Eagles, since the end of last year, they've been going through this odd kind of struggle. But the Eagles got it out. But the Saints, I think, are a team that should be taken a little bit more seriously. Even though they play the NFC South isn't as strong as the other divisions in the NFL. I think the Saints have a lot of pieces that really play well against other teams. Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara has been pretty good this season. So, yeah.
And Rashid Shaheed, although he did not have any action yesterday. Definitely an impressive win for the Eagles. Zach, I know you're a big Eagles fan, so I know you know a lot about the topic. Real quick, my comments on the game. Derek Carr finally came back to what we now know as Derek Carr those first 2 weeks. I think we're kind of Cinderella, but we'll see about that. Zach, big win for your Eagles. What were your takeaways from the game?
Definitely a big win for us for sure. And then Saquon Barkley again saves the day with that touchdown with only less than a minute left in the fourth, man.
17 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. Is Saquon Barkley, I'll pose this question for everyone, is Saquon Barkley to the Eagles the best free agency acquisition so far through 3 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, I guess you could argue McKinney with the Packers too, with his interceptions, but in terms of overall impact on the team, I mean, Barkley hands down was the best free agent acquisition.
Yeah.
I don't deny that. Adam, what game really stood out to you this past weekend?
Okay, this one, like when I saw this, I was like, huh, because now this team that I'm going to mention, they're my second favorite team in the NFL, but the Denver Broncos.
The Denver
They
Broncos.
took down Tampa Bay 26-7. Like Bo Nix, boy, I honestly think the way he's going right now in terms of how he's playing, he's going to be the savior of the Broncos. This may be a bit of a stretch, but if he continues the way he's been playing, he could maybe be the next like Peyton Manning.
Whoa.
But as I said, that's
our
a
first hot take here of
That's a
October.
bit of a stretch, though.
The next Peyton Manning.
Who knows? But the way
Good
he's
com-
going right now, and like the way that the defense for the Broncos played yesterday, yeah, the Broncos should be okay because Baker Mayfield and that offense they just struggled. They just did not look like themselves.
And Tampa Bay comes off a great win against Detroit. So when you go home, homecoming, sitting at 2-0 on the season, you're playing a team like Denver who's started off 0-2, very slow. You're expecting to go out there and win, take care of business for the home fans. And it just
Yeah.
was not the case. Sean Payton, not one of my favorite head coaches, but he had a great game plan yesterday. The defense looked tremendous. Baker looked, quite frankly, lost out there.
Yeah, he did.
And shout out Tyler Beatty, Briarcrest High School graduate alum, with 9 carries for 70 yards in that game. Just wanted to shout out Tyler Beatty. Got to represent my high school. Also, high school of Michael Orr. Shout out the blind side as well. But yeah, Mason, what game really stood out to you this past Sunday?
Man, for me, it comes down to 2 games, which weirdly both had the exact same score. The Jets and the Seahawks, both of them beat their opponents 24-3. The one that I want to focus on the most would definitely be the Seahawks versus Dolphins game. You see Geno Smith. Personally, I've been preaching the Geno propaganda since last year.
Oh boy, another
He
propagandist.
is one of them ones, for sure. Like, no question. Passing for almost 300 yards. Geno Smith is legit. And I think it's kind of weird for people to accept that based on, like, how big of a comeback he's made in his career. But you look at him play, especially this season, just good game after good game after good game. They saw Kenneth Walker go down. Zach Charbonnet came in, rushing for 91 yards. They're not missing the beat. The Seahawks defense is also pretty underrated. You don't hear too many people talk about how good that defense is. And they went out there and they punched the Dolphins in the mouth. Of course, you got to feel kind of bad for the Dolphins. When you look at them, it's like they lost Tua. Hopefully he gets well soon. Skylar Thompson went out there trying the best Skylar Thompson really can at the end of the day.
Skylar Thompson went out there and did what
He went
Skylar
out
Thompson
too.
can do.
We saw Tim Boyle have to go out there, suit up.
Oh.
It's looking bad out there in Miami. It's not all sunny for Florida anymore. It's bad. Tyreek Hill did not look like the Tyreek Hill we know. Same with Jalen Waddle. H.M. Seahawks held him to only 30 yards, which is crazy if you've been watching how he's been playing. Just looking at what the Dolphins are looking like now, based on what I expected them to be, I mean, Tua isn't like a guy quarterback, but he's good enough to where like he can get their main playmakers the ball, and if you can get Tyreek Hill the ball, he can pretty much do the rest. Same with Jalen Waddle, same with Achane. But now with them being on their third string quarterback?
I mean, yeah, especially if Thompson's unable to go. I imagine they did bring up Tyler Huntley from the practice squad. I just don't think he knew the playbook quite yet. So I expect Huntley to be the starter next week if Thompson can't go. But yeah,
It's looking bleak for the Dolphins, man. Real
it's a
bleak.
great segue to the next part of what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to go over all 4 undefeated teams. We briefly touched up on Minnesota already. But so with the Seahawks, you think they're legit? Do you think they actually pose a legitimate threat in the NFC West? Do you think they can make a playoff push? Or do you think it's a fluke start? Because, I mean, we got to look at their first 3 games. They beat Denver at home, on the road at New England, and at home against Miami with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. So is this team legit? Are we going to see the Geno Smith of 2 years ago? Or are we going to see the Geno Smith of last year and an underwhelming Seahawks team?
Look, when I look at that team, now the competition, what I will say, it's completely fair to call that into question. They beat the Skylar Thompson Dolphins. Woohoo. What you want to see from them and what you have been seeing is they're going out and beating the teams that they should be beating. You mentioned the Patriots like they're a bum team. This year, the Patriots defense has been on one. And you still see Geno Smith playing the same. If Geno Smith can keep playing the way he's playing, I'm not saying they're like a Super Bowl team, but they, at this point, are looking like they're probably a lock for the playoffs. The Seahawks are looking like a legit, strong playoff team. They might be a first round exit, maybe mess around and go to the second round. I don't see them getting much further than that. But if we're talking about legit in terms of just making the playoffs, I don't see how you look at that team and be like, this is not a playoff caliber team.
I see. Chris, your thoughts on the Seahawks?
Seahawks have been pretty good. The NFC West, other than that, has looked pretty weak. The Cardinals and the Rams, I'm not too surprised about. The Rams, Aaron Donald retired. They've always had injury issues. Arizona's still trying to figure things out. It's crazy to think a few years ago they were one of the best teams in the NFL, went to the playoffs and got bombarded by the Rams in the first round. And then the 49ers, they kind of miss Christian McCaffrey a little bit. But I think the Seahawks, if they don't win the West, will be a wild card team, and I think they can definitely, like Mason said, make a little playoff run, maybe win the first game, if not have a good one. But the Seahawks are a really good team.
Yeah, so I agree 100%. I don't think they win the NFC West. I do think once the Niners and Rams return back to full health, I think, personally, I think Geno will come back down to earth, but especially after a 3-0 start, and some winnable games, especially against the Giants, and you got the Cardinals twice, the Bears late in the season. You have a case for 8-9, 9-8, 10-7. But anything more than that, I'm going to need to see a little bit more from Geno, especially with the Niners once they get fully healthy. And I need McCaffrey to come back so bad for my fantasy team. I have him in almost all of my leagues. Please get well soon, my king. But anyways, Seahawks, fraud or not, Mr. Adam?
They're legit, hands down. I mean, this year with how they're playing, I thought after last season with Geno and how he played, I thought, no, there's no way that they can come back this next season. I thought Geno was just done. I thought he was washed up. But this year, boy, he's been proving me wrong. Yeah, I could see them at least getting into the wild card, but honestly, I really don't see them going any further than that.
I 100% agree, and I was one of those people too. I mean, Geno's proved me wrong through these first 3 weeks, but when they made that trade for Howell, I thought there was going to be a borderline QB competition week 1, week 2, and I'm a Sam Howell, big Sam Howell guy, and Geno has come out and shut me up these first 3 weeks. He's looked tremendous. Zach, Seahawks fraud or not?
Oh, they're legit for sure. Just how the way they've been playing the first 3 weeks this season, they have potential to possibly make the playoffs this year. I don't know about winning the NFC West division, though, but I would say their potential to make the wild card.
And I 100% can see that. I just don't see a big run for their future. Sorry, Carson, I know you're a big Seahawks fan, but I got you at 10-7 at best. Going to a similar team, undefeated, we'll transition back over to the AFC. 3-0. With Justin Fields, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Adam, fraud or not?
Okay, to any Pittsburgh fans out there, I'm sorry, but to be honest, I just don't see Pittsburgh as being legit. And to me, the simple reason is because it just boils down to the fact that they haven't had a strong schedule so far. I mean, the 3 teams that they have played have been either at average or below average caliber. Yeah, I mean, they've played the Colts, which they're kind of below average.
Yeah, they
the
played the Colts
Cowboys
this
are
upcoming weekend.
The Cowboys are about average, maybe on the borderline of below average. And the Raiders have just, they're 1-2 as well, but they just haven't been playing well either. So, and Justin Fields, he actually has an offensive line that can keep him protected. He's been playing a lot better than when he was with the Bears, but honestly, I can see this 3-0 start being a bit of a fluke for them. So, once they play on actual really good teams, I could we'll see. He may prove me wrong, but for now, I just don't think Pittsburgh really is living up to the hype that they're at right now.
Yeah, that defense, tremendous. TJ Watt is just phenomenal.
Oh, yeah,
that
former
defense has
Badger.
looked great.
Love that guy.
Giving up only 10 to Atlanta, 6 to Denver, and 10 with the Chargers. But like you mentioned, none of those teams, when you say Falcons, Broncos, Chargers, are teams that really stick out to you. Maybe Atlanta in the NFC South and relatively how weak it is. But the Chargers, Herbert was banged up. Broncos, rookie quarterback. That defense has looked tremendous, but do we really see this team making a postseason run, Chris?
Possibly. I mean, the Steelers are always hit or miss with the playoffs. I think, again, they'll have that winning record by the one game, but it's just a matter of, how good the rest of the AFC is for them to get into the playoffs. But I don't think they're spectacular, but I think they're pretty average, like they usually are with Mike Tomlin. But once I think teams like the Ravens and the Bengals start ramping up in the AFC North, hopefully the Bengals, because a couple of years ago they had a couple of years where they were really good, and then last year Joe Burrow got hurt. And I'm hoping that Joe Burrow stays healthy this year and gets the Bengals back to another really good season. But the Ravens, we know, will probably get back on track. But the Steelers, once those two teams get kind of hot, I think they kind of fall off a bit, but still have a good season outside of their division. They're just always kind of that average team, though.
I really think that's a testament to how great of a coach Tomlin is, because no matter what the product is, offensively or defensively, it seems like they always go out there and it's not pretty in the slightest, but they finish with the W. And some fans are saying, that's great and all, but does it really matter if postseason success or not? It really just depends on your takeaway. Do you want to be good in the regular season, or do you have to embrace the tank and eventually end up becoming one of the better teams in football? Mason, 3-0 thus far for Pittsburgh. Do you think they make the playoffs, and where do you see them finishing in the AFC North 1 through 4?
Man, the Steelers, it's literally the same story every single year. As long as Mike Tomlin is there and has his voodoo magic, whatever he did to deal with the gods, where it's like every year I'm here, we will have a winning record. They'll always be like in the playoff race, but they're never really in it, but they're in it though. So like Chris said, it pretty much just depends on how the AFC shakes out if they'll make it. They're probably going to go 10-7 or 9-8. They have a sneakily hard schedule past week 8 and on, seeing the Chiefs, Bengals, Ravens, Eagles,
Brutal back half
Browns.
of the schedules.
But I feel like they could, when you look at their schedule, they could beat teams like the Browns. How the Browns have been playing, Deshaun Watson's looking like one of the worst QBs in football.
One of the
They
worst
got the
contracts of all
Giants.
time.
They could pull out one against the Jets, even though I don't expect it. The Raiders, they're going to probably end up with a positive record once again this year. But in terms of actually making something happen in the playoffs, Mike Tomlin's going to have to sacrifice another toe or whatever else he did to get the winning records all the time. In terms of where they're going to figure out, wherever they're going to find themselves in terms of the standings, I probably got the Ravens winning that division.
I agree.
Yeah,
And then after that, it kind of is going to be a bunch-up situation. I probably got the Browns last place. So at worst, they're going to end up third. At worst, they're probably going to end up third. If I had to put my money on it, they're going to be third in that division.
I gotcha. And Zach, what are your final thoughts on the Steelers?
I would say they're not legit. I'm sorry.
Not legit at all.
Nope.
No postseason push?
Nope. I'm sorry. I mean, they've had an easy first 3-week schedule, that's for sure. But once they get to the tougher teams, that's going to be a huge challenge for them.
Yeah, that back half, like you mentioned, you got your 6 divisional games, which is arguably the toughest division in all of NFL.
Yeah.
And Chiefs, Eagles, Ravens twice, Browns twice, Bengals twice.
Yep.
I just wanted to make it clear that the Colts and Cowboys and Raiders, those were the 3 games that they have played already. Like, those were just cakewalks, honestly.
No. Those
No, they
are
haven't
those are
played those.
upcoming
Well,
3 games.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
that those are their upcoming games, so
Oh,
that
yeah,
should
yeah.
be okay.
Yeah. I mean,
But yeah, I know I made the mistake earlier of
oh,
saying
it's
that.
it's
Oh,
it's
yeah,
they-
you're good.
You're good.
you are all good here on Hawk Talk. Quick little plug. To conclude this NFL segment, I'm going to ask each of you guys a way too early Super Bowl prediction. We'll start with you, Zach.
I don't know, man. They're all.
I don't know, Jim.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, man, what I would pick for my Super Bowl matchup. If I had to predict, though, I would say it's going to be the Chiefs and, let's see, Chiefs and 49ers again. It'll be a rematch.
Chiefs and 49ers. I think the Niners finally get fully healthy. I can see it. It's a safe pick, but it's very, very plausible. Adam, how about you?
Well, me, I'm going to have to go, and Zach's going to like this one, but I'm going to go with a rematch of when Jason Kelsey was playing for the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Chiefs and Eagles this year.
Chiefs, Eagles.
Another rematch, but this time I'm going with the Eagles.
Let's go.
The
winning
Eagles
it all.
beating the Chiefs. Very, very
I
interesting.
hope that happens.
Chris, how about you?
This is a hard one. I think the AFC, you have to go with the Chiefs. I mean, you can't count them out. You know,
Pretty
whenever the
unanimous.
Bills play them in the playoffs, they can't win. The only active quarterback right now that's beaten Mahomes in a playoff game is Burrow. But I don't know if they're going to meet again. Again, if Burrow can even stay healthy. But I got to go with the Chiefs from the AFC. The NFC's a bit tricky with the 49ers struggling early in the season. Looking at this week, I think it's going to be Philadelphia, Kansas City.
Philadelphia, KC.
I was going to almost say New Orleans, but I don't think they're going to make it far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I believe those first 2 weeks offensively were a fluke, so I am going to agree with you there. Mason, how about you?
Like everyone else has said, man, as long as Mahomes is on the Chiefs team, you look at it, these first 3 weeks, he's been playing some of the worst Mahomes football you will probably see for the rest of the season. And they've been beating the teams that, like, they beat the Ravens, they beat the Bengals. Those are two of the teams that, like, people want to beat them. When you're looking at how bad the Chiefs have been, Travis Kelce's barely looked alive out there. They've been showing Taylor Swift more than they've been showing him touching the ball. So
Real talk.
this is them at the worst they're going to be. The Chiefs are probably going to go there, and realistically, they're probably going to three-peat. I don't know who I have. The NFC is, like, surprisingly more challenging to me than the AFC this year. I feel like there's a lot of really competent NFC teams. To me, I feel like the 49ers, this isn't their year. To me, it's a coin flip between the Eagles, and as long as I live in Wisconsin, I'm going to say the Packers are in there. I can feel it in my heart when Jordan Love comes back. The Packers, we're looking so great. And I'm going to say that probably not every, I've actually been honest with myself as a Packers fan. I'm an honest, fair guy. But when you look at the NFC, the Lions, I don't know if they're going to do it. The Rams, they're all banged up right now. I'm not sure how they're going to look going down. The Eagles, as long as Saquon Barkley's there, that's going to be tough. Realistically, my heart probably says the Packers. I want them to be there, but it's probably going to be the Eagles and Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Titans, Bears. I'm kidding. No, obviously, pretty unanimously decided between the five of us. Chiefs are definitely the team to come from the AFC. To your point, Mason, Mahomes has looked not very Mahomey, according, to Collinsworth and Romo. But that being said, they've had 3 really tough games. I mean, at home against Baltimore, against the Bengals, and then you go on the road against Atlanta, which is not an easy win, especially after the win they came off of last week. Homecoming for Kirk Cousins, that was a close game, and it really came down to a really poor play call, in my opinion, in 4th and inches. I think you just got to QB sneak it or put in Penix to do the QB sneak.
Yeah.
You don't need him to be healthy this year. I know Kirk's coming off a torn meniscus or torn Achilles, but come on, this is a must-win game, in my opinion, for momentum and for your team.
Yeah.
Put in Penix for some mobility. You drafted him for a reason, and like I said, you don't need to have him this year. It's definitely going to be the Chiefs from the AFC. I'm really not sold on Philadelphia. Hurts did not really impress me as much as a quarterback, as we've seen in recent years. And it's my second favorite team, but I'm going to have to agree with you, Mason. I think it's the Packers. I really do. And real quickly, I just love what I've seen. I saw the shellacking firsthand this weekend on my team, but Willis has been perfect for what they've done these last 2 weeks. You don't have to rush Love back from injury like you initially thought you were expecting to. Mm-hmm. And when Love now can come back fully healthy, the way this defense is playing, what LaFleur's got going on, I think Josh Jacobs will come into his own. You have a tremendous receiving core with Wicks, Watson, Romeo Doubs, etc. I think it's going to be Chiefs-Packers. I don't know if I can pick a winner quite yet. My heart's telling me Chiefs, just based on Mahomes. As long as Mahomes and Andy Reid are together, that's what's going to happen. But I do think the Packers break the hump and can get to the Super Bowl this year, trying not to be homerish, but I really haven't liked what I've seen from the NFC thus far. Not sold on Philadelphia or New Orleans, for that matter. Maybe Detroit, but I don't know. I just don't see it. I think Green Bay has the slight edge.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or does Coach Andy Reid kind of look like the guy from The Natural? like that head coach for the Knights from The Natural? Is it just me, or like you see it?
I can see it somewhat.
like that's a bit of a take, but I mean, if you look at the mustache, it's strikingly similar.
Very, very,
like
very similar.
Like the looks are uncanny.
Very similar. And yeah, as long as Andy Reid and Mahomes are together, the Chiefs will be a perennial powerhouse. And as much as I hate to say it, Mahomes at this rate is starting to enter GOAT combo. But that's another story for another day. For a different episode of Hawk Talk, last segment we'll be going over today, MLB postseason push. Well, this is perfect from what I've gathered. We got a Phillies fan, Brewers fans. I'm a Guardians fan, so for the morale for all of us, it's pretty good right now. Really
Yeah.
enjoying
Amen to
the
that.
success that we've seen. And I remember in the spring semester of last year on Hawk Talk as a guest, we were talking about the beginning of the season, and I was like, yeah, Stephen Vogt's going to win Manager of the Year for the Guardians, and Pat Murphy's going to win Manager of the Year for the Brewers. And part of me was just saying that because it's my two favorite teams. I wasn't expecting it to come to fruition and see the flat-out level of dominance that we've seen thus far. I'll start with you, Adam. You got the Brewers shirt out right in front of me. Is this the year for Milwaukee to get over the hump? Do you think this is the gelling and coalition that they need to succeed, or not?
I mean, initially I thought, yeah, maybe, because I mean they started out the year pretty well, but then you get maybe like past like okay, first half they look great. Second half they kind of took a dip a little bit, but when Devin Williams came back, I mean they've been doing really good. But honestly, I mean I don't know if they keep playing the way that they have been, like especially with that 8-run comeback yesterday afternoon. I honestly think they might have a shot. I could see them getting past the Diamondbacks, and the wild card should have come to that. But honestly, if the postseason began today and they beat the Diamondbacks in the wild card series, I just couldn't see them going past the divisional.
I can agree with that. Chris, big Brewers fan.
Big Brewers fan.
Tell me about it.
Well, recently they've had a little bit of a struggle here getting close to the end of the season. That Diamondback series was a bit tough, losing a couple games, and yesterday we know be it down by 8 runs and then coming back from that. I think this year they have a good shot of, well, the first step is winning a playoff series because Milwaukee has not won a playoff series since, 2018, I think?
I believe you're correct.
It's been a
When
while.
they beat the Rockies.
The Brewers, I think, in that span, made it to the playoffs every year but once, and that was 22. But I think whoever the Brewers play in the first round, which right now I think it's supposed to be Arizona, I think in that rematch we can win that. And I think Milwaukee's looking good. Everybody's believing in Pat Murphy. He's got his guys. Like, it's good chemistry, a lot better than I think what Craig Counsell could do previously. I think Milwaukee has a really good chance of at least, making it to the NLDS. The NLCS is another question because you got the Dodgers and the Phillies you got to go through, whoever.
The juggernauts.
Based off our, whatever happens at the end of the regular season. But right now the Brewers look really good. They're super good, and I think they finally get that playoff series win that they've been trying to get for a long time. And I think past this year, the Brewers are really good with their youth and obviously a new manager who everybody's believing in.
Would you rather play the Mets or the Diamondbacks in the first round?
Oh,
Because currently they are both tied at 87 and 69. I'll pose this question to everyone. As a Brewers fan, who would you rather play in the first round?
I'm going to say the Mets.
Really?
I think we struggle a little bit with the Diamondbacks. And then obviously last year we lost that series to Arizona. I don't know if that would happen again where Arizona would play like that in a playoff series against us, but I think I'd rather play the Mets. Just I feel like Arizona's a tough team for Milwaukee.
Often a thorn in the side. Mason, thoughts on the Brewers, and who would you rather play in the postseason?
Man, personally, as the super MLB casual of the show, it sounds like, I get the personal benefit of just being a hometown team, and whatever I say, it doesn't have to hold too much weight. So, for me personally, after seeing the Brewers come back 8-0, I think what it said, this is tied for our second biggest comeback in franchise history, as I was doing a little bit of research. After seeing that, I'm not scared of anybody whose last name isn't Ohtani at this point. So bring me anybody.
Ultimate.
I'm riding
Ultimate
my
take.
Brewers. Amen. What can I say?
And the
Bring us
Brewers,
the championship.
Brewers have looked quite impressive this year. Originally picked by many betting markets to finish fourth in the division, and not only did they exceed that expectation, they were the first team to clinch their division. But enough about the Brewers, Zach. I'll give you a chance to talk about your Phillies. What are your expectations for them upcoming postseason?
This should be fun.
I hope they make the World Series this year, man. But I'm very worried about the Dodgers, though. If we play them in the National League Championship Series, that does happen, man. Because that Ohtani kid, it's like he's unstoppable, man.
What are we up to now? 53 and 50? 53 home runs, 50 stolen
Yeah.
bases, or 51 stolen bases now? First player in MLB history with a 50-50 season, and it just has to be
I
talked
mean,
about.
hey, Philly swept the Dodgers in a 3 or 4 game series in July earlier this year. So, but I would just say this: Phillies have a really great shot at making the World Series, and me personally, I see them making the World Series, and I would also see possibly them winning it at all. So, but I'm just saying, if they don't win the World Series, I'm going to be completely disappointed with just how dominant they've been all season. A huge disappointment if they don't win the World Series.
Sitting at 92 and 64, the second best record in Major League Baseball.
Yep.
Dodgers just one game better at 93 and 63. Phillies have looked tremendous all year, but real quick, got to spread some Guardians propaganda for all of you. Diehard Cleveland Guardians fan. Last year did not go great. Ferry Francona retired. We get new manager Stephen Vogt, very similar to what the Brewers have had. I've often called the Guardians the Brewers of the American League. They're very similar in terms of market size, salary, new managers for both teams this year. A lot of player-friendly managers, younger guys going out there and just getting the team rallied up. But Guardians just have looked incredible all year. There was a late postseason, divisional push from the Royals, Tigers, and Twins, and from September on, the Guardians have looked tremendous. Clase and Williams, two of the best closers in baseball. Really love what I've seen from Cleveland this year. Lane Thomas is finally coming into his own as a trade deadline acquisition. And yeah, from what I was anticipating, I was expecting maybe fringe wildcard team at best, but to go out and just win the division and still be contending for the number 1 overall seed in the American League, only 2 games back from the Yankees, who have a tough series approaching with the Orioles. It's very well possible that Cleveland could finish as the 1 seed in the American League, and I'm very excited for that. And me, as long as all of my roommates are praying and praying for a Guardians-Brewers World Series. We'd be a house divided, but in the end, one of us would be happy with what we got. So, with the postseason coming right around the corner, only 5 games to 7 games left for a majority of teams, I'll start with you, Mason, since you classified yourself as the baseball casual. If you had to pick a World Series right now, what would it be?
Man, like I said, I know very limited baseball knowledge. I want to get more into it. So, man,
It's the perfect time to. The postseason's the best time.
give me whatever team Shohei Ohtani's on to win.
The Dodgers?
Yeah, the Dodgers. And then forget it. Throw the Brewers in there too. Like I said,
Dodgers,
man.
Brewers, they're both in the National League, so they both unfortunately cannot play in the World Series. You're just going to go with the Dodgers, Yankees?
Whoever they play against, they're winning.
I got you.
Yeah.
So you got the Dodgers going all the way. Chris, how about you?
I think this is the year that this is the best year that the Yankees can finally break the hump and get to the World Series. But I don't know. It's tricky with them. They always make it, and then they're like a big contender, and then they
Fall
just,
in the ALCS.
Yeah. I think I got to go with the Yankees from the American League. Houston is not looking as strong as they were before. I mean, the start of the season, Houston looked very off.
Abysmal.
I thought Houston was going to completely miss the playoffs, but now they're the 3 seed, which is pretty good. But I got to go with the Yankees. And the Dodgers just look too good right now. I got to go Yankees-Dodgers.
I am going to have to agree with you there. It's the casual pick. It's the safe pick, but unfortunately, those are the 2 best teams in
Yeah,
baseball.
all the stuff that he just said, that's like what I meant to say.
Yeah. I got you. Adam, how about you?
Well, as I said before, Zach's gonna like me for this one, but I honestly see that this year is the year that both of the 1 seeds in both leagues go down.
Really?
Yeah, I can honestly see the Dodgers and the Phillies going into 7 games in the championship series, but I could see like Zach Wheeler going out for Game 7 and just completely dominating the Dodgers. And I can see the Guardians and the Yankees making the championship series as well, and the Guardians getting it done in 5-6 games.
I would love that.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to say it'll be the Guardians and the
The Phillies.
Phillies, yeah, in the World Series this year.
I'm a big fan of that prediction. Zach, Phillies, and who else?
I'm gonna say the Phillies and the Yankees in the World Series.
Phillies and the Yankees.
I'll just keep it on the East Coast.
Yep.
I obviously want to say Guardians, Brewers, but the real fan in me, just knowing baseball, will be Yankees, Dodgers. It's boring, but it makes money,
It's the most likely.
and those are the two best teams. But
It's definitely
I
the
agree
most
with you.
likely.
Trying to take all bias aside, though, if the Yankees do fall, there's one team in the American League that I really think could do it, and it'd be the Cleveland Guardians. That being said, we'll now wrap up with final thoughts for all of you guys on the show. Zach, you've done it before. Final thoughts is just a 30-second to 1-minute little spiel. It can be a sentence, it can be a little thing, shouting out one of your sports teams, shouting out a player, or what you're looking forward to watching this upcoming weekend. I'll start with you, Zach. What are your final thoughts?
All right, let me mention the Philadelphia Phillies one more time. They are one win away from clinching the National League East Division. They're playing the Cubs tonight. All they got to do is win to officially clinch division for the first time in 12, 13 years. And they're also, the magic number for them to get the first round bye is 3. So we're this close, man.
That
this close.
Phillies and Cubs currently playing right now. Adam, final thoughts.
All I have to say is Brewers, keep doing your thing, because because you've been setting the world on fire right now in terms of the offense. The pitching, yeah, it could be a little bit better, but offense, just keep rocking it. Just keep rocking it. Especially to Jackson Chourio, who's quickly become one of my favorite players on the Brewers. So, to a guy who's like a few years younger than me, we're gonna make you king. Yeah, we had Prince Fielder, but he's only Prince. Jackson Chourio, you're gonna be king
I gotcha.
in this city.
Very good take. Chris.
Well, I got to say I'm excited for not one, but 2 Monday night games tonight, Jacksonville and Buffalo, and then Washington, Cincinnati. Looking at those 2 games, I think Buffalo and Cincinnati win them easily, to be honest. Just Washington and Jacksonville. Washington hasn't been strong in a long time, and Jacksonville, they had that good year a year or 2 ago, and they've kind of crumbled since then. But I'm excited for those 2 games tonight.
2 very good Monday night games. Mason, final thoughts.
Man, final thoughts. Like you guys said, this is my year. I'm getting in MLB heavy. I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. Brewers, we're getting it done. Once again, as long as I don't see Ohtani on the other side, we're coming out with it on top. Let's go, Brewers.
I also wanted to talk about the 2 Monday night football games tonight. Buffalo will take care of Jacksonville. I'm not going to go out and flat out say that the Commanders are going to win, but I think we're going to have an electric game. I firmly believe and still believe that Jaden Daniels was the best rookie quarterback in this class. I think he's going to go out and put out a show this prime time. And 7 points is what they're giving him right now. I'm going to go Cincinnati 31-28 on a game-winning field goal from McPherson.
Okay.
But expect a Jaden Daniels legacy game, and for us to be talking about him next Monday. That concludes the first Talk of the semester. This is Brendan Donlevy here on 91.7 The Edge, WSUW Whitewater. Got some more alternative music coming for you up next. Pixel Fiction by Jewel.